Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host. So we're here at Bolthouse Farms in Bakersfield, California. By the way, Dwight Yoakam's on tour. I was actually looking for tickets for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and then I saw Dwight Yoakam's name come up on the Ticketmaster site or whatever. And I don't think I'm going to go see the Chili Peppers. Not because I wouldn't like to, and not because they're not going to be in a venue that's convenient, but like the cheapest ticket is $280, and I don't know. I mean, I like them. They're a big deal, but I don't know. Maybe that's like 10 times what I used to pay to go see a top musical act in concert, like 30 years ago. So I don't know if that like matches up with inflation over the years, but it just seems like a lot. And that's, like I said, for like nosebleed seats. If you want to get closer, then it's like goes up exponentially. So anyway, so we're here in Bakersfield picking up a load of, I assume, carrots, since I see no other produce around here but carrots. So we're going to run this load up to Salt Lake, get somebody to repower it so I can get my truck serviced. And yeah, we'll just go from there. So I wanted to talk about, and I've kind of talked about trainers before, and how to, because I want to empower trainees, and I also want Prime to have good trainers. And notice I said good trainers, right? I didn't say perfect. I think there are some things that you need to be very good at if you're going to be training TNT, and that's primarily what I'm talking about here. You need to know the rules. You need to obey the rules, the company rules, DOT regulations, stuff like that. It always bothers me when I hear of people that ignore stuff like that and want to be trainers. It's like, what do you want to train people to be? Disobedient or slackers or whatever you want to call it, but just teach them to do things that'll get them fired if they get caught. I don't get that, but there are a few other things, but let me kind of preface this by saying no trainer is going to be perfect. I mean, honestly, my kids don't think I'm perfect. Like, my kids, especially my adult kids, are always like, oh, Dad, you need to do this, or you should have done this differently, or why don't you know about this, etc. And so I don't suppose that any trainee is going to think, oh, Terry is like the best, like he's the paragon of trainers. What I hope is that my trainees think that I'm competent and that I care about them being competent, and that we're able to work together, we're able to collaborate, because we are kind of a team. But you're not going to find a trainer that's perfect. Conversely, I don't think I'm going to find a student that's perfect, right? Like, and so I have to temper how I conduct training to match that person's strengths and weaknesses and try to get them proficient at everything. And I say proficient because somebody could get through 30,000 miles of TNT and still not be very good at backing. Heck, there are people that could go through 130,000 miles of TNT and not be really good at backing. I certainly have driven way more than 130,000 miles in my trucking career, and there are days when I back like this is my first week in a truck. It just, sometimes I kill it, where I back in a little tiny space with very little room for error and get it done the first time. And then there are other times where I have all the space in the world and I make it look like it's really, really hard. And I think anybody that's a truck driver will tell you that that's happened to them. But let's talk about how a trainee should think about a trainer, and how to know when you should cut your trainer loose, when you should fire your trainer. Now, some things, and again, not every trainer is perfect. No trainer is perfect. But there are some things that are just what I would call showstoppers. So if, for instance, you walk up to your trainer's truck and it looks like this, then you should politely say to the trainer, hey, I'm just not feeling it. I'm going to talk to the fleet manager about maybe having somebody else train me. And, it's your training, right? You shouldn't feel bad about telling somebody that you don't think they're up for the job. And, too many trainees, I think, are so desperate to get through the 30,000 miles that they accept bad trainers. And one of the things, like I've heard of trainees talking about trainers that have their truck as a rolling dumpster. That's not okay. If you get in somebody's truck and it smells like ass, it stinks, they got, body fluids, around, then maybe, just say, look, I'm not going to do this, and it's okay, right? It's not unreasonable. And you need to tell, that's the other thing too, is you need to tell a fleet manager, hey, this is why I don't want to be on this guy's truck. If you walk up to the truck and the guy's sitting there and he looks like this, you might want to say, hey, I have certain standards, like you have to wear a shirt. And I don't care if it's two guys, I don't care who it is, right? You got to wear a shirt. And because it's just, do you want to sit on a seat where the previous driver, the guy or gal you change shifts with was driving without clothing on? I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't even want to do that with one of my family members. I'd be like, put a shirt on. Like, I even have a rule when I was, when I had all the kids home, I'm like, you can't come to the dinner table without a shirt on. Like even in the summer, even at a picnic, put a shirt on. It's just a standard that I have. It's I don't know, call me snooty or whatever, but that's just my standard, And I, for what it's worth, I mean, I'm not saying you got to be all primed up, like, wear a Prime t-shirt, but put a freaking shirt on, and because you are representing your company, and I get that's where you live, but I guess what I would say is, I consider, if I can see in your windows, it's like you're on your front porch, right? And don't get me wrong, I see people mowing the lawn without a shirt on or whatever. Just, but you don't have to accept that as a trainee. Another thing you don't have to accept is a trainer that expects you to do things that they don't do. Like a trainer that never does walk around, never does pre-trip, never, like that's why do you feel good about that? I had a trainee on my truck that didn't feel comfortable with how the trainer like checked his truck out and did his pre-trips, or didn't do the pre-trips, didn't check anything, and that trainee left at a truck stop. They just were like, nope, I don't feel good about this, and they left, and they had a family member come pick them up, and that's okay. But you have the right to have a trainer that does the job properly. You also have the right to have a trainer that respects your time. I think it's totally uncool to, and I've heard of this happening, for a trainer to go on home time and leave the trainee sitting in the truck. Like, what the F is that? You know, that is so not gracious. It's like, it's ridiculous. You know, it's like, would you want somebody to do that to you? And even if somebody did that to you, do you really think that's the right thing to do? At a minimum, if you say, oh, well, I'm going on home time, but I'm bringing you with me, at the minimum, you should put them up in a hotel and make sure they have transportation or easy access to options for food and stuff. Now, I've said this before, but I've had trainees stay at my house. I've welcomed them into my house. Some other drivers will be like, oh, that's a bad plan, and you know, I mean, maybe it is, but the people that have stayed at my house have all been very nice and kind of fit in, and you know, if Beatrice doesn't hate them, then I'm not too worried about them. But you know, you don't have to do that, but it's bull crap to just, you know, park your truck in a Walmart parking lot and expect the trainee to just hang out on the truck for days while you are home. Heck, when I pull into a terminal, I encourage my trainees to see if they can get a bunk room. I'll stay in the truck, but I know that they don't, you know, if they can get out of that top bunk while we're parked and just go get a room, that's, you know, first of all, it's not really any skin off my back, but it also is like for them, you know, an opportunity to get a break. So another thing that I think that trainees should feel strongly about is that, you know, I have heard of inequities in driving and in the work. And you know, my friend Lyle at No Hippie Trucking and Transportation, he always says he wants to outwork his trainees. And I kind of take the same approach, because believe it or not, and you can ask people that have trained with me, I like driving. And I sure as hell am not going to be like, oh, you do all the drive. You know, we need to drive, you know, 15 hours today. You drive 11 of it and I'll drive 4. I mean, unless I can't do it and I feel like they're well rested enough and it's time for their shift, you know, I'm going to be behind the wheel. I mean, I had an option this morning to either, because I drove yesterday, but we had like an overnight stay waiting to pick this load up. But when I got up this morning, you know, my trainee was like, do you want me to drive? And I said, I'll drive. And I let them, because of how this schedule worked out, they're now working on they're almost to a 34. So I think before we get up to Salt Lake City, they'll have a 34 done, and then their clock will be reset, and then I can get off the clock and they can drive, she can drive. But you know, trainees shouldn't be driving only at night. I will say that training, you know, you want to get the miles, so driving a lot of them yourself is a good way to get towards 30,000 miles. But driving during the day is a training evolution, just like driving at night. There's a lot more traffic during the day in most places, so it's good to be around that. I want my trainee to drive every hour of the clock at some point. I want them to drive in bad weather. I want them to drive in the mountains. I want them to drive in bad weather in the mountains at night. And if it's hard for them or they need guidance, I'll be out of the bunk. I'll be awake. I spend a lot of time in the right seat. If your trainer, especially during your first, you know, say 10,000 miles, doesn't spend a lot of time in the right seat, then I feel like you're not getting trained that well. There's a lot of little tiny things that you may not do or do well if you're not instructed on it. Training involves interaction, right? You know, just being on a trainer's truck is not training. That's just driving, you know. So if you're not getting the training that you need, or that you feel like you need, if you're talking to your peers and they're doing all sorts of other things that are trucker things, like, you know, as part of the job, but you're not allowed to do them, you know, that's an issue. I've heard of trainees not being allowed to use the Jake brake. Like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Like, you should be, you know, that, I mean, other than, like, I don't know how to hold the steering wheel or whatever, where the brakes are on the floor, you know, instructing somebody on Jake brakes is like, it's a life safety issue. It's not like, you know, I consider that trucking 101, you know, and you need to demand that you be taught how to do things. You know, the guy in Colorado that ran down the mountain and killed a bunch of people, I guarantee that he wasn't properly trained. I mean, he panicked because he burned up his service brakes, and, you know, never maybe realized that he had this other tool that would have slowed that truck way down and would have, you know, made it possible for him to handle everything and not, you know, kill a bunch of people and injure a bunch of people and end up in jail. You know, that's malpractice to not teach people how to use the Jake brake from day one. And make, you know, teach them how to use cruise control, Jake brake, how to, you know, how to stab brake, all that stuff. That's just life safety stuff. That's like, you know, as if we put somebody in the Navy but didn't teach them to swim, you know. That's just malpractice, like I said. You know, so if you're a trainee and this truck has equipment you don't understand, like if you come off a trainer's truck and you don't know how to lower, you know, how to release the air from your tractor airbag so you can get underneath a trailer, or if you don't know how to, like, lock up the, you know, the rear drive axle when you're in a situation where the wheels may be off the ground. You know, I'm just looking at all these little things that are on this truck. If you get in your own truck and you're like, oh shit, what's that? I gotta open the owner's manual, then you weren't trained properly. Sorry. And if you're a trainer who thinks, oh, they don't need to know that, well, again, you're not doing your job. You know, just quit. Just admit it. You don't really want to train. And, you know, the last thing is, I've heard of people, trainers, that complain about, you know, how much they have to pay trainees. You know, right now I'm sitting, okay? It's part of the job. And, you know, my trainee's in the bunk. Guess what? While she's up there, I'm paying her, right? That's because she's on a salary. But if you have a trainer that seems to resent paying you, and, you know, is $900 a lot of money? Yeah, sure, it's a lot of money to be a trainer, or excuse me, to be in training. But it's also, you know, there are a lot of demands on you. Like, I don't have any compunction about making my teammate, you know, get up and, you know, drive at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Like it's $900 a week, but there are a lot of expectations. Like, if she was like, well, hey, why don't you drop me off at the outlet mall while you go pick up those carrots? I'd be like, no, I'm working, you're going to be on the truck. Not saying she has to be working or something like that, but that's the expectation. But the converse is that I shouldn't be complaining about it, what it is, because I knew going in, okay, this is what I got to pay. I got to pay the payroll taxes. That's just how it is, right? That's what I accept. Anytime you take a trainee on your truck, you got to accept the program, and you got to be committed to the program. So if you're a trainee and, you know, you're getting crap, and by the way, I have not heard of this, but it wouldn't surprise me that it has happened. and it's this, that somebody says to a trainer says to a trainee, hey, you want to train, I know you need to get on a truck, you want to get your 30,000 miles so you can get to work, but here's the deal, I think that you're gonna have to hook me up with some money. And it wouldn't surprise me to learn that somewhere out there are trainees who have actually handed over cash to trainers. Now, I'm not making any accusations. I don't have any information about that. But I practiced law for a while, and I've seen every kind of scam there is. And there's a lot of scam artists in the trucking industry. I just look at how many people get busted with, drugs in their truck, how many people get busted, at crashes that are drunk, how many people, there's a lot of truckers that aren't very good people. And I'm not saying that that's endemic just to the trucking industry. I mean, it's everywhere. But if you're a trainee and your trainer is expecting you to contribute monetarily to them in any way, whether it's buying them coffee or buying them a meal or just giving them cash so you have the privilege of riding on their truck and getting your 30,000 miles, that's a huge red flag, and you need to turn them in. And obviously, in addition to cash, changing hands or you footing part of the bill for certain things, even by the way, even if you have an accident, if your trainer wants money from you, that's wrong, right? Because that's the risk we take as trainers. If my trainee hits something and I have to pay $1,000 deductible, that's a business expense. And by the way, I had employees when I practiced law make mistakes that were very costly sometimes. And I never fired anybody over that, right? I never said, oh, you screwed this up, you gotta go, right? Because people do make mistakes. So you're an employee, you don't pay for your mistakes. That's just wrong, right? Because that's the risk that a business owner takes. But let me just take this point one step further. If for any reason, right, a trainer demands something, whether it's money or favors, sex, anything like that, that's a huge red flag. You need to turn them, just get your shit and leave the truck. It doesn't even matter where you are, and get a hold of Prime ASAP and say, my trainer just did this, whatever it is, and I'm off the truck. You need to send me an Uber, get me a hotel, get me a plane ticket, and demand that you be taken care of. So anyway, I hope none of you run into these situations, but if you do, know that you have the right to demand a good trainer, and that as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do, you should have a good training experience. It's going to be hard work, I've said that, but you should have a good trainer. You deserve a good trainer, and and you need to speak up to protect yourself and to protect people that come behind you. So anyway, and by the way, if you need to, there are confidential ways to get information out. You got a network, people, and I really do think Prime doesn't want crappy trainers. I think they just don't know about a lot of the nonsense that goes on. And the only way they're going to find out is by good people speaking up. So anyway, be safe out there. Appreciate all the good trainers. Appreciate all the people that are working hard to get, the next group of people through training. and hope everybody has success and everybody stays safe. Talk to you soon. Bye.